So imagine, you are an ordinary person who recently watched a lot of many speedrun related videos and began wondering, I wonder how hard it is to speedrun something. Well, there's only one way to figure it out. Hello everybody, this is Joni, and for today's video I ask myself, how difficult would it be for an ordinary person to speedrun Super Mario Bros? I am not a speedrunner, and to be honest, I am not actually a huge gamer, so I finally decided to try myself and wanted to share my experiences with you from my little journey. I wanted to try a fairly easy looking game that I like and played before. Surprise surprise, the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES was the perfect choice. I watched so many speedruns of it and explanations on how it works that I pretty much have everything memorized at this point. It's finally time to use this knowledge and try speedrunning it. Also, I hope you too know how speedrunning Super Mario Bros. Works, so I don't need to explain every single thing. Well, technically, this isn't the first time I speedrun Super Mario Bros. 2 years ago, I made an animation project with a tool-assisted speedrun I made to create a 60:9 animation playthrough. You're able to watch it by clicking here. I started the first day with the first problem of getting my answer. I do not own an NES. So everybody knows the alternative for it. I had to use an emulator. But I didn't only want to emulate the game, but whole NES experience. I think I achieved that by setting the NTSC filter on the FCUXC emulator and plugging a controller into my PC. That's not an NES controller, but this is the closest to the original experience I can get. Also, when you don't have the original console, emulation is just a more convenient method anyway. Remember that I don't want to break world records, just have some fun discovering stuff. I have never played Mario on a controller before though, so it took me a few minutes to get used to the controls. Nonetheless, shortly after, I started to practice. Which leads me to the greatest thing in the emulation, save states. With them, it's much more convenient to practice each level individually. First hour was really sloppy. Even for such easy level as 1-1, it took me some time to get fluent with beating it. I quickly realized that the stairs will be my biggest enemy. It's because it really takes some practice to clear them without bumping. And for the underground section, yeah, I totally don't need 380 on the timer. Even if it's possible, as you can see, I was able to get it sometimes. In general, I don't care about frame rules or anything like this in my speedrun. And to be honest, ending the level with 69 on the timer isn't that bad. And obviously, flagpole glitch will remain as a part of my imagination for the rest of my life. As I already stated, I don't want to be the best, small mistakes will always be made, and it's totally fine. Speaking of small mistakes, 1-2 has plenty of opportunities where you can make one. Jumping over the stalagmites isn't difficult at all, just 1 or 2 precise jumps and you shouldn't fall in between them. Where it gets a bit more tricky is this section here, where you have very little room to jump and avoid the enemies. And while you technically can jump over them with frame perfect inputs, it was really difficult for me to pull it off. But there's another, a bit easier way to do it quickly. Perform a backwards jump right before the Koopa. That will accelerate you just enough when you land to kill the second Goomba. It still requires precise inputs, but hey, if I learn it, you can too. Second Goomba that can be very trolly is this one. It requires a jump in just the right time, so you can either avoid it or stomp in midair. What surprised me is how often you can get accidentally killed by it. Seriously, that happened way too often to me. You just need some precise timing here. After that, you come across the 3 pipes here. With some precise timing, you can easily jump over them by landing exactly at the first pixels, but for me, that was too precise and inconsistent that I decided to just wait for the plants to go down, just for the simplicity. Some precise jumps on the pipes later, I go to 4-1, which is a complete joke of a level when you speedrun it. Lakitu can't hurt you at all, jumping over pipes is really easy when you do it at the correct time, so the only true obstacle are the stairs at the end, where again you can bump into. There's practically nothing more to say about 4-1 other than it's just some jumping and that's it. My thumbs were getting sore, so I kinda had to start practicing soon, which leaves me with just one level left for this day, 4-2, and it is a mixed bag. Obviously, I need to perform the wrong warp, and this is a trick that needs a bit more skill to perform it quickly. So far everything was pretty straightforward and didn't need much explanation, but this level requires Mario to move a bunch more pixels to the right. I decided to go with probably the easiest, the 3-bomb method, where we need to perform a backwards jump in just the right time and position that Mario gets pushed a few pixels to the right. And we need to do that at least 3 times in order for this trick to work. I did that here, here and here. But since I must avoid this piranha plant, I usually do a 4th backward jump just to be safe. Now you can see how far to the right I am now. compared to the beginning of the level. I ensure I'm completely still on the pipe before I enter it, because if Mario was moving, the screen would move along with him and the trick wouldn't work. And then the last obstacles are the stairs again, and a bit more tricky jumps on the pipes because the ceiling is a bit lower. And this is how I wanted to practice the stage. Sometimes I would fail in performing those backwards jumps, so my backup strategy was doing these jumps on those pipes. It was a bit slower, albeit still helpful. And this pretty much was the first day of my speedrun practice, just first 4 levels. The total time combined was around 4 hours, which roughly translated to 1 hour per level. And to be honest, I learned the strategies, I was getting pretty decent at beating those stages, and everything was much more consistent in general. All that combined made me more optimistic and excited for the next day and the rest of the levels. So I started day 2 by checking if I still can play first 4 levels just as easily as yesterday. And yes, everything went smoothly after a few tries. 4-2 backwards jumps were much more consistent, and stairs were much less of a problem, although still kinda sloppy. 1-2 pipe jumps are not going to happen, and looks like ending the level with 3-4-3 on the timer here and with 3-4-8 in 4-2 is just what I need for the purpose of this video. Obviously, I was getting better with practice, duh, but nonetheless, I had to ensure I must do as little mistakes as possible. And now, things were about to change. So I started practicing 8-1, and it's not the worst level out there. However, since it's the longest one, it requires more focus and precise jumping in one sitting. In the very middle of the level, there are 3 pipes. We could obviously do a pipe jump, however, again, for me, they were too difficult to pull out. So the best strategy was, just like in previous levels, waiting for piranha plants to go down. I should also mention that since I avoid doing pipe jumps and I jump over them instead, I usually find myself in a very tight space with not much room for a sprint jump. So I kinda solved this problem with backwards jumps, since Mario accelerates quicker this way. And then there is 8-2. I personally think this is the biggest wall for a beginner, because it features a lot of precise jumping from start to finish, and there are enemies everywhere. Its one redeeming thing is that it's relatively short. It was a pain to clear consistently, since if you want to do this as fast as possible, it's very likely you are going to make a dumb mistake. It's like when you want to grab something quickly and accidentally knock everything else. Not to mention, there's absolutely no way I can perform a bullet bill glitch. But eventually I managed to finish this level, so I could start working on 8-3. This level isn't all that bad, but as you know, it does contain hammer bros. And since I don't care about frame rules, their patterns will always be random to me. It's 50-50. It can either be a good pattern or a bad pattern. It's completely lucky this time. In the good pattern, they are not in my way and are easy to kill. In a bad pattern, no prizes for guessing, they are in your way. However, with a precise jump, you have a very slim chance of defeating him, but obviously that's too inconsistent. The rest of the level is usually much easier than the beginning, and obviously you have to slow down a bit at the end to avoid fireworks. 8-4 is surprisingly not that bad, since you don't need to be as precise as in 8-2, but some precision is needed nonetheless. For example, at the very beginning, where you have to perform a sprint jump, it looks difficult but it totally isn't. Later we've got more jumps, easy to pull off, and then there's this frame-perfect jump and the wall jump on the pipe. Personally, I managed to get them a few times, and they're definitely doable and far from impossible, but if you mess them up, it's not a big deal at all, especially that you can quickly recover from a failed wall jump. Then this water section is easy. There's a specific route you can take to complete it flawlessly. I just kept forgetting to do it. Not a huge deal also. After that, one huge jump to defeat the Hammer Brother, and Bowser can be very trolly. It's always random, so you may want to take a bit of time to react to his movement. So these are the last 4 levels, the second half of the run. I made it look very easy, but trust me, it really needs some practice to finish those consistently. It took me 5 hours to be happy with them. Of course, I was taking breaks during the grind, because, to be honest, with the unpredictability and tons of silly mistakes, I was getting kinda frustrated. However, I had just enough patience to beat those levels more consistently. And now, at day 3, I decided to finally join all my knowledge and skills together and start actually practice the full run itself. So I set up live split and began running. And man, that was not a walk in the park. At least for the first few tries. Some dumb mistakes were made, however with time everything was going more and more smoothly, just how I wanted. After all, this was still practicing, and yes, after 1 hour I was getting to 4-2 much more consistently. On average, I was beating 4-2 with 2 minutes and 15 seconds on the timer, and it was perfectly fine. So naturally, I wanted to speedrun the whole game and try to get full splits. Unfortunately, 8-2 was still a huge wall. It almost killed my willingness. Every single time, something went wrong. I figured out that I just need to take my time in it, and more precisely in those places. Here, I slightly tap left to avoid this Koopa, and then to jump over this pit. And the second place is right here, where I just stop in this place to wait for the bullet bill, and then jump over it. Those two little changes change 8-2 practice forever. Now it was actually easy and consistent. And patterns of Hammer Bros still luck-based, unfortunately. Right, so that closes the third day. And you may wonder, what about 8-4? Well, the thing is, I never made it to 8-4. Even after 7 hours of practicing, both as a whole speedrun and each level individually. Either I was dying in random places, I failed at performing a trick, or I was simply burning out with time. And this is where day 4 comes in. First things first, I changed my layout a little bit. Now it has a background image, input viewer and a camera. For the first 1.5 hours, I was playing really good. It was morning, I was refreshed and all, and then, out of nowhere, attempt number 219. I made it into 8-2, then 8-3, and finally 8-4. I knew this was the run. I decided to play a bit more safely than quick, and that was it. I completed my first ever speedrun, 5 minutes and 17 seconds. I had my footage, splits and all. So, that's it, right? No. I was so happy that I finally finished this, and to be honest, the run itself wasn't that bad. However, judging by how safely I played 8-4, there was still plenty of room for improvement. So at day 5, and continuing to day 6, I changed my layout a little bit more and decided to stream further attempts. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get another run. In total, I made over 400 attempts plus tons of practicing off screen, and I have managed to beat the game only once. Accidental deaths and mistakes were just piling up. I got very annoyed of it and eventually burned out completely. Yes, this is where I give up. I really got tired and wanted to move on to make this video. But before we jump into the conclusion, let's take a look at my completed speedrun first. Alright, so we are in the actual speedrun right now. I'm gonna perform a little commentary. 1-1 is very easy and straightforward. I don't get 380 on the timer, but it doesn't matter at all. At the end, I smoothly jump over the stairs, and that's the first level. I make a split at exactly half a minute. And then 1-2, also easy level with only 2 places I had to be careful. I jump over those stalagmites and then over those Koopas. Here I make a precise backward jump to accelerate quicker and not get killed by the Goombas. Now here I wait a little bit for piranha plants to go into the pipes. As I said before, it's too risky to make pipe jumps. And then I finish the level just normally. -1 continues to be a joke level. You really need to make a dumb mistake to die in this level. Apart from the stairs at the end, there's really nothing that can slow you down. And here's the most interesting level, 4-2. First 2 jumps are really simple. Then I had to perform 3 bumps during jumping backwards that pushes me just enough to the right for a successful wrong whoop. And here I stop for a moment not to get killed by a piranha plant. The stairs are also easily cleared, and there's the first half of the levels. So far, no big slowdowns. I'm pretty happy about it. 8-1 is the longest level, but in reality, it just required some well-timed jumps to clear. As you can see here, again I wait for the piranha plants to get out of my way. I am too far into the speedrun to risk getting killed, and the rest of it is just walk in the park. (8-2) is mostly well-timed jumps as well. No huge philosophy here. But then 8-3 can be really trolly since I don't take frame rules into consideration. Hammer Bros' patterns are unpredictable. But as you can see, somehow I got really lucky and all the Hammer Bros behave just like they need to get my best 8-3 of my life. And obviously the slowdown at the end to avoid fireworks. At this point I am really stressed out. I knew I cannot mess 8-4 up. You can see by how safely I play it. I even forgot to attempt a wall jump on the pipe. And then the water section, super safe. I wait for the fire bars to move out of my way. This Hammer brother is really easy to defeat, and then the Bowser. I didn't even think about the YOLO jump, I just patiently waited and that's it. That's the speedrun, the first official completed speedrun of my life. I am really happy of it and very proud of myself. The time of 5 minutes and 17 seconds meant the 433rd place on speedrun.com, right? No. Unfortunately, I forgot to reset the emulator every time. Instead, I was save stating my way to the beginning, which is against the rules of speedrun.com. Well, that's a dumb mistake, but I'm okay with that. I made a speedrun for a purpose of a YouTube video, not to compete with others. So what is the conclusion? How difficult it is for an ordinary person to speedrun Super Mario Bros? It is medium easy. Let's be honest, the game itself is not difficult. Speedrunning it requires some skills, but as I've shown in this video, you can learn them in a matter of hours, and then beat the game consistently in a few days. With a bit of luck, of course. Obviously, I am not talking about sub 5 minutes runs, that's ridiculously difficult. For all the runners and everybody who ever had a world record, you have my massive respect. I am impressed by your willingness. So yeah, I asked a question and I got my answer. But there is still one more thing. Even at this point, I still wonder what will be my theoretical best time. To answer that, I created a task where I just jam every skill I learned into one to see the result. As you can see, first 4 stages aren't really different from my PB. I actually played it really well. Obviously, everything after that was just as optimized as I could. I even included a failed wall jump just to make it more natural. And it ended with 5 minutes and 12 seconds. If I had to grind for a few more days then, yeah, I think I could get that time. But at this point, what's the point? Right, so this is the end of the video. Links to my PB and tasks are in the description. And see you guys later.